So good morning, everyone. My name is Monica Cruz, and I serve as the State Data Center Lead here at the Texas Demographic Center. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Texas Demographic Center is the State Data Center for Texas, and we are a member of the U.S. Census Bureau State Data Center Network. We function as a focal point for the production, interpretation, and distribution of demographic information for Texas. We are also produce and disseminate population estimates and projections, as well as other demographic information. Special emphasis is placed on data that may be useful to policymakers at the local, county, regional levels regarding the demand for state services and other resources. And our director is the the Texas State Demographer, Dr. Lloyd Potter. We are so pleased to host two friends from the U.S. Census Bureau who will share information about the U.S. Economic Census, as well as an amazing tool called the Census Business Builder. Although we scheduled this webinar for an hour and a half, our special guests will only present for the first hour, and staff from the Texas Demographic Center will stay a little longer to answer any questions you might have regarding this webinar or other data products that we can assist you with. So we're going to have just leave this space open for a mini open house in case anybody wants to stay a little longer, but our guests will be with us for the first hour. So I'll go ahead and introduce our special guests. Andy Haight is an economist and serves as the data product and data user liaison in the Economic Management Division at the U.S. Census Bureau. With over 30 years of service at the Bureau, Andy advises on economic data products and conducts data user training and outreach for the Economic Census and the Census Bureau's other monthly, quarterly, and annual economic survey programs. He co-leads the team that built the COVID-19 Data Hub, an interactive platform that presents data on the coronavirus pandemic. He also is the lead designer and coordinates development of Census Business Builder, an innovative tool that presents selected demographic business and other data in a user-friendly and map-based interface. We have Erlene Dow, who is a program analyst for the Data Users Trade and Outreach branch at the U.S. Census Bureau. Erlene has been promoting and training people on the longitudinal employer household dynamics, or we call LEAD or LED, products for over 11 years. LEAD makes available several online applications for dissemination and visualization to the public through quarterly workforce indicators, LEAD statistics, job-to-job data sets, and post-secondary employment outcomes, as well as veteran employment outcomes. These applications include on the map emergency management, and various other data tools. So Erlene has played a key role prior to joining the LEAD team. She played a key role during the 2010 census in the Public Information Office. And so we are so pleased to have you both here. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Andy. And again, we will have question and answers after. If you post a question, we'll facilitate that towards the end. But if you can all just remain muted while our presenters present. So go ahead, Andy.
Great. So thank you so much, Monica, for inviting me. Again, my name is Andy Haight. I'm an economist at the Census Bureau, and I'm on our call today with my friend and colleague, Erlene Dowell. Erlene and I are going to basically split our 50 minutes or so session. I'm going to start off with an overview of the data that we publish in the Economic Census, and talk a little tiny bit about what's coming in the next Economic Census, our 2022 Economic Census. Then we'll spend a tiny bit of time talking about the COVID Hub. I want to highlight a couple of brand new features that have been just recently added to the COVID-19 Interactive Data Hub. I'm not going to get a chance to do a demo of it, but I would encourage you all to check that out when you get a chance. But I am then going to do a demo of Census Business Builder. This tool has been around since 2015. It has evolved a lot over those 6 years. And even having just presented this tool at your conference last year, there's already been 4 major updates since then. So I'm going to focus on what is the brand new features in CBB. And then I'm going to turn it over to Erlene, and she's going to talk about all of those wonderful LEHD data tools. Now, I do want to go ahead and turn off my camera, see if I can figure out how to actually do that right now, so that we can not worry about any particular or potential video challenges. So to get us started, I love starting off with this slide. If I were to ask 10 people in the United States, what is the U.S. Census Bureau? Over 9 of them, 9.4 of them, would say that we are the organization that counts the U.S. population once every 10 years. But we do a lot more than just simply conduct the decennial census, the population census. In fact, we do more than 130 different monthly, quarterly, annual, and periodic programs. About 60 of those, 130, are economic programs. So while Monica said that she works in the Demographic Center, we do publish not only demographic data at Census, but economic data as well, so business statistics. And that's the area of the Census Bureau that Erlene and I both work in, our economic directorate. When I think about those 60 or so economic programs, a pyramid is an interesting way to sort of visualize the hierarchy and the detail that is shown in these economic programs. At the top of the pyramid is our monthly and quarterly surveys. The Census Bureau does 17 of the leading economic indicator surveys that you hear about on the evening news. These are really, really timely programs. We have data available just for last month. But they are some of the least detailed programs that we conduct. So very timely, but not very detailed. The second level of the pyramid is our annual programs. Every year we conduct 20 different annual economic programs. These are not quite as timely as those monthly and quarterly surveys are, but they are more detailed. And this is where you start to see not only national level data like you get in most of our monthly and quarterly surveys, but you start to see data at the state, metro, county, place, and even zip code levels. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about those economic programs because a lot of them are in Census Business Builder, and I would definitely encourage you all to get in there and play. But at the base of the pyramid is the economic census. Every 5 years, on the years ending with 2 and 7, we conduct a complete economic census of every employer business in the United States. It is our most comprehensive program. It provides the most detailed industry data, provides the most detailed geographic data, and it certainly produces the most detailed other statistics. This slide provides just a little bit of information about that detailed content that is published in the economic census. So we cover nearly every 2 through 6 digit North American industry classification system code. Yes, that is nearly every, it's not every, and that is because we don't publish data on agriculture, for example, because USDA does. We don't publish data on colleges and universities in the economic census because the National Center for Education Statistics does. But this is the most comprehensive of all of our economic programs. It is the most detailed in terms of geography. The economic census historically published data not only down to the place level, but also down to the zip code level. We did drop zip code level data from the 2017 economic census. And I know some of you are probably about ready to say, oh, that's such a bummer. Why don't you have zip code level data available? Well, not to fear. We have a program called Zip Code Business Patterns that is an annual program that produces zip code level data. So when my colleagues on the economic census side asked about would anybody cry if we dropped the zip code data from the economic census, I said no, because to be quite frank, I always send people to Zip Code Business Patterns and never to the economic census zip code data. So why would you send to someone five-year economic census data when you have annual data? This is our most detailed program in terms of the other dimensions that are shown. So many of you, for example, may be interested in small business and how important or not small businesses are to your local communities and your local economy. Census produces data by business size in the economic census, and we define small not only by establishment, individual business location, but also by firm, the size of the company. And we publish the data by employment size and by sales size. So if your definition of small is a individual business location that has fewer than 5 employees, we have that data. If your definition is a company with less than $1 million worth of sales, we have that data. And as you can see, we have a lot of other statistics available from the economic census. We actually have just recently completed releasing data from the 2017 economic census. Yes, it is 2021. Yes, that does mean it takes us a long time to release the economic census data. We got a very late start this year because of the pandemic. We started collection late, and then right when it got ready, time for us to start reviewing statistics, the pandemic hit. So some challenges with that this time. Now, the economic census of 2017 was just completed, and here are some key links that I've provided for you all. We did send this PowerPoint file to Monica, so I'm sure she'll be sharing with this with you later. But I figured it might be nice to just give you a couple of deep links into our data.census.gov platform to give you just a taste of what the data from the economic census looks like. The first link brings you to something called our core statistics. These are basic data on number of establishments, employment, payroll, and sales by industry and by geography. And this link happens to bring you to state-level data for the state of Texas. But for those of you who are familiar with data.census.gov, once you click on this link and it brings you into the data, you can then use the filter menus to then change Texas to a particular county, Travis County, or maybe you want to look at the data specifically for the city of Austin. You could go ahead and change that. The second link is to something called our NAPS data, North American Product Classification System. Every 5 years, we publish data on the products sold by each individual industry. And of course, we tailor those products to the industry. NAPS is brand new for the 2017 economic census, and it is now providing a lot more detailed information than what we ever had before, and certainly more comparable information. Now, the third link, I know it doesn't look like a link, but it really is a link, brings you to something called our Comparative Statistics Report. As many of you know, the North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS system, changes every 5 years. So when people are looking at their local economies and they're comparing economic data over time, and I'm going to say this very important point, this is not only true when you're comparing Census Bureau economic data over time, but when you're comparing any data published by any source on the NAICS basis over time, you have to make sure that the thing you're comparing is in fact comparable. What if the industry that you are interested in was affected by a NAICS classification change? You may be trying to compare something where now that industry really is quite different in the current basis versus the prior basis. What the comparative report does, it allows you to compare 2012 and 2017 economic census data on the same basis. So it's almost as if the NAICS classification change in 17 didn't occur. So it gives you that one moment in time to be able to go in and actually compare data and have it be truly comparable. The next link is to our franchise report. Yes, we do publish data on franchising. You may have noticed that on the previous slide. And this will bring you to some data on limited service and full service restaurants in Texas to see how prevalent franchise businesses in those two industries are. Now, let's talk for a moment just about the upcoming 22 economic census. This is a fairly high-level slide, and I provided a link here at the bottom, which is very important. We are going to be releasing more and more detailed information on our economic census website. So for those of you who are curious about what you are going to be seeing once we start collecting data from the 22 economic census, that type of information will be posted on our website. The 22 economic census will cover business activity starting January 1st next year and ending December 31st. next year. So of course, that means that we can't actually begin to start collecting data from businesses until late in 2022. So some of those large corporations in Texas will get their economic census information, response information in late, probably October or November of 22, to give them an early start on it. But we don't complete collection of data into the early part to mid part of 2023. So it's still a ways off. I know some of you are probably sort of curious about what's going to be in there, but we still have some time. There will likely be some changes to the types of businesses that receive forms from the economic census. And I have the word form in quotes because you won't be receiving a paper form. We actually made the switch to 100% electronic response 2 economic censuses ago. So for 2017, there was no paper form, and that'll be true again in 2022. We will be closing out collection of the 22 economic census in late 2023, and then the first look report is likely to be released around December of 2023. So again, still some time to actually do this. When we collect and publish the data, these statistics will reflect the geographies and the industries as of December 31st, 2022. So my point that I was making about industry change and needing to make sure that you're collecting data and comparing data over time, geography boundaries change as well. County boundaries can change. City boundaries change all the time. The U.S. Postal Service can change zip code boundaries monthly. So when we are publishing data, those geographies will be as of December 31st, 2022. And we will be posting some materials for you all to review to look at what are those 2022 NAICS changes and the 2022 geographic area changes. So what are the counties in Texas that had some type of boundary change between the 2017 and the 2022 economic census? We constantly are tweaking the publication levels in the economic census, and it's likely that that will happen again. So again, check the Econ Census website for more information as we get closer. Now, I have a few other prognostications here about some other potential economic program changes that you're going to be seeing in the next year or more. This last year, 2020, was a very interesting year for us at the Census Bureau. In some respects, I think of it as a watershed moment because it really forced us, in some respects, to do some things with our programs that we previously would never have thought about doing. Data collections that we didn't think were possible, we actually did. So if you are familiar at all with our economic programs data that are in the experimental data products area, we conducted something called the weekly Small Business Pulse Survey that gave information on how small businesses were impacted by the pandemic. These types of changes that we made during 2020 will likely lead to other types of changes, which could include further expansion of some of those experimental data products. I know some of you who are already really familiar with and love that Small Business Pulse Survey have been asking me, Andy, is it going to be around beyond COVID? The answer is yes. We've realized just how valuable a weekly economic program can be, especially when we publish it at the state and metro area levels. So it is very likely that we are going to be expanding those programs. We will continue increasing our use of administrative data and data from other sources. Census has for a long time relied on our own data collections, but what we've realized is we can do some really interesting things with our own data when we merge it with data from other sources. So it's likely that's going to be happening. Now, I mentioned those annual programs that we conduct. There's likely to be a number of changes to those annual programs. Historically, the Annual Survey of Manufacturers, or the ASM, was the only annual program that we publish, one of the only annual programs that published state-level data. The other programs, the Annual Retail Trade Survey, the Annual Wholesale Trade Survey, the Services Annual Survey, those programs only published national-level data. You all need data for Texas. You want data specifically for Travis County. So we are going to be changing some of those other programs. Those of you who are familiar with data.census.gov and the Census Bureau's data API know that we keep adding more and more data to data.census.gov. That'll continue. I'm fairly certain you'll continue to see data from other economic programs making it into this platform. And then finally, we have found real value in mashing up Census Bureau economic and demographic data. You see really interesting patterns as an entrepreneur when you look at the demographics of an area and the economics of an area. So we're likely to be continuing to do that. And you'll see some of those mashups in Census Business Builder. To learn more about this, I really would encourage you all to sign up to receive these updates. So that'll then bring me to COVID. So this is the top of the COVID-19 Interactive Data Hub, and I provided a link to the hub here on the left-hand side. I would encourage you all to check it out because this hub has recently added a lot of additional content that was never here before. One of the new things that we added is a series of data equity tools. The Census Bureau has 5 tools that we used and we built to help people understand potentially underserved markets, underserved communities. But what we discovered was with this new presidential directive that is requiring organizations that are distributing resources to distribute those resources in an equitable fashion, these tools that were created, for example, to help us conduct the economic census or conduct the decennial census like Rome, those tools could be very useful to people who are trying to understand potentially underserved communities in your own areas. One I want to draw attention to, I'm not going to get a chance to show you, but I want to let you all know, if you learn nothing else from me today, it is that Community Resilience Estimates is an amazing program. It is not one of our economic programs, unfortunately, but it does provide amazingly detailed information about the resilience of your communities down to the census tract levels. So really cool tool. And then finally, the last brand new thing I want to talk about is we just recently added a whole new dashboard for IMLS, the International Museum and Library Society or Association, that produces information on public libraries. Here is obviously a screenshot of what the current dashboard looks like. I've zoomed in on Texas. On the left-hand side, we can see the top 10 library systems by the population that they serve, and on the right-hand side is the selection for outlets itself. You can go in and look at data specifically on individual library outlets. Library systems, the systems break out by state, and each individual library branch library. So it's a really neat tool. We know that libraries served a very important function during the pandemic and served an important function even prior to the pandemic, so we added that. So that brings me now to Census Business Builder, and I'm now going to jump out live in my last just couple of minutes here and show you some of the brand new things in Census Business Builder. So to get to Census Business Builder from the main Census Bureau homepage, I could just type in the search box CBB. That would bring me to a search list, which I would click on the first link, and that would then bring me right over here to the CBB homepage. On this page, you have links to the 2 editions of Census Business Builder. On the left-hand side is the Small Business Edition. This edition was created specifically for entrepreneurs and small business owners to help them gather the demographic and business data that they would need for their business plan, for a loan application, or just quite simply to research their local communities where their business is located. Maybe I'm thinking about expanding my location, my business, opening another restaurant of my business, and I want to research, is that a good idea? The second edition is the Regional Analyst Edition. This edition was created originally for chambers of commerce who want to understand the demographics and economics of the area that they serve. They are interested in all the businesses, not just one type of business at a time like the Small Business Edition does. But we've actually found that emergency management officials are now using with the Regional Analyst Edition even more than Chambers of Commerce are, because it allows them to do what-if analysis. If a hurricane were to come up into the Gulf and were to strike the city of Houston, how many businesses would be potentially impacted? How many people are in that city? They could then build their own sort of custom geographies and say, if the hurricane were to take this particular tract up through Texas, how many people, how many businesses will be impacted? Now, I'm going to very quickly just show you the small business edition. So I'm going to pretend that we want to research opening a bar in Travis County. So I'm going to choose bars, and then I'm going to type in Travis. Once I type in Travis, we can see that there are actually 3 geographies with the word Travis in them. There's Travis County, Texas, and then 2 other TRAV geographies. I'm going to choose the county. And when I then click on Go to Map, the application is now going to zoom in on Travis County, and it's going to present by default the total population, which is the variable that's selected by default. So we can see that in Travis County, 1.2 million people live in Travis County. And if I then click around on the map just to the north in Williamson County, 547,000 people live in Williamson County. Just to the southeast of Travis County, Bastrop County, 84,522 people live, et cetera. So you can click around on this map, you can pan it, you can zoom it, et cetera. The first new feature that I want to highlight for you all is something called Bivariate Mapping. So as you can see on the map right now, the map only displays a single data variable, total population. But let's say I wanted to compare not just the population of the counties around Travis County, but I want to look at household income. How does the household income in Travis County compare to neighboring counties? I can go to this menu, select my not selected, go through my menu system and choose median household income from that. And now what I'm going to get is a map that's now going to show 2 variables on the map. The second is going to be shown with a little circle. The larger the circle, the larger the value, the smaller the circle, the smaller the value. So in Travis County, the median household income is $75,887. Scrolling over here, all the way over to the west, in Gillespie County, the median household income is $59,155. So you can see, you can now view more than one variable on the map at the same time. So that's the first major change I want to talk about. The second change I want to talk about is the levels of geography that are shown in Census Business Builder. Right now, we're looking at county level data. And up until last year, we only had state, county, city, zip code, and census tract levels. But we had a lot of users that were asking for metropolitan area level data, so we now added metro to this. That would allow us to look at the metropolitan area for this particular area of Texas. Now, one thing that's important to note is that not every county in Texas is in a metropolitan area. So if we look at the map itself, you're going to see these huge areas of no data being displayed over here, this large area over here, down over here to the east and southeast of Travis County. These are counties that are not in a metropolitan or micropolitan statistical area. So that's, if you're wondering why it looks that way. We, of course, can look at data at the more detailed level of geography, too. So if I wanted to look at, let's say, city level data or zip code level data, I could simply click on zip code, and now the map is going to refresh, and it's going to show zip code level statistics for all the zip codes in this particular map extent. And as you can see, there's a lot there. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my second variable just so you can see the map a little bit clearer. But here's zip code level data, City of Austin sort of here in the center of the map. And we could drill down even further to go all the way down to census tracts. Now, the next new feature I want to talk about is something called industry clusters. Some of you had said, you know, I'm interested not just looking at bars as an industry, but I want to look at other hospitality related industries. I want to look at bars plus full service restaurants and look at a total of all the businesses in that particular industry cluster. Some of you have said, I want to understand the tourism sector in this area of Texas. And I have my own definition of what is defined as tourism. I have a dozen industries, let's say, that I think are related to tourism. Can you build for me a custom industry cluster? So the answer is yes. So if I now change, just to give you an example, if I now change the data that's being shown on the map to the number of employer businesses. So in Travis County, there are, if I click on Travis County, go ahead here, we can then see that there are 314 bars in Travis County. But if I now want to look at the combination of bars and full service restaurants, I can go in here and I can add a second industry. So I'm going to go to food services, I'm going to choose restaurants, I'm going to confirm that I want to add that industry to my cluster. I now can go ahead and edit that name. So we're going to call this bars and rest. I'll just call it rests, just to give it a name. So now we've created a name of that cluster, and now the statistic that we're seeing, 1,368, is actually the total of bars and restaurants in Travis County. So it allows me to build my own custom industry cluster. The last feature I want to show you that's brand new is this Geo Ranking Chart. This is brand new, was just added in version 4.0. What this is now showing us is how does that 1,368 bars and restaurants in Travis County compare to the top 5 counties in Texas. So we can see Harris County, there's 3,675 bars and restaurants in Harris County. Dallas County, there's 2,241, et cetera. So in Bexar County, there's 1,671. So you do have this ability to now go ahead and look at that geographic ranking. You can also look at that data for this combined area over time. So to see, is that number of bars and restaurants increasing, decreasing, or staying the same? And if we were looking at a particular statistic where we can do a comparison, we'd be able to look at a geographic comparison chart that would compare Travis County to the state of Texas and to the nation as a whole. So let's say I was looking at the payroll per employee of bars and restaurant employees. And I want to see, is this an expensive area to open a bar or restaurant? In comparison to neighboring counties, I could actually do that and look at the geographic comparison chart. Now, the last thing I just want to show you, I'm not going to demo all the features, is of course, in Census Business Builder, I can save my work. So this link here, I can bookmark it and come back to it, and it'll save exactly where I am. I can, of course, create a report that takes all of that data that was in Census Business Builder and present it in a report type format. And this report can also be bookmarked. So if I want to save this, maybe send the link to a colleague of mine and they want to review it. So here's my cover sheet. In that one county area, there's 1.2 million people. Here's my demographic characteristics of those people, socioeconomic, housing data. Here's my businesses data. So the combination of bars plus restaurants, and then it keeps going down from there. These reports can be downloaded, and if you wanted to print the report, you can actually download it as a PDF and then print the PDF. So that was a very, very quick walkthrough of Census Business Builder. I'm now going to jump back over to my, let's see here, switch back over to my PowerPoint slides. And I'm now going to turn it over to Erlene for her to walk through the presentation on these wonderful longitudinal employer household dynamics, or LEHD programs. So Erlene, it's all yours.
Thanks, Andy. I'm just getting ready to share my screen. So hopefully, can you give me a yes, Andy, if you can see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, super. So thanks, Andy, and thank you to Texas for inviting me back to present LEHD tools. Let's see. So today I'm going to present how the data tells stories, especially in Texas. But first, I'd like to give a brief overview of the data and where the data comes from, in case you didn't know or in case you forgot. So unlike the American Community Survey and the Economic Census, the longitudinal employer household dynamics is not dependent on survey responders. LEHD links employer and employee data for the U.S. LED is a voluntary federal-state partnership that was developed in 1990 with just a few states. Under the partnership, states send their UI wage records and their QCEW to us. When we receive that, we then combine them with censuses and surveys to create a new dynamic information on workers to produce public use data products as well as microdata for research. The UI records give us job data, the QCEW gives us firm data, and our person data comes from censuses and surveys. When I first started promoting LEHD in 2010, we had 2 data sets and 3 data tools. Now, LEHD has 5 different data sets with 7 data tools for easy access to these data sets. Each data set, along with each data tool, is unique in its own way. If you're looking at information about hires, separations, turnovers, and earnings, you would look at the the quarterly workforce indicators, and you'd utilize the QWI Explorer or the LED extraction tool. This data set is also accessible through the Census Bureau API. The most current year we have data for is 2021 quarter 1 for some states. If you want to look at employment for detailed and customized geography, you would look at the LEHD Origin Destination Employee Statistics or LOADS data using On the Map or On the Map for Emergency Management data tools. The most current data we have for LOADS is 2019, which was just added this month. And if you want to look at statistics on job mobility across state boundaries or industries, transitions between jobs by timing and firm or worker characteristics, or earnings changes due to job changes, you would use our job-to-job or J2J flows data using the J2J Explorer. The most current data for the data set is 2020 quarter 2. One of our newer data sets is the Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes, or Pseo. This experimental data set reports earnings by institution, degree field, degree level, and graduation cohort for 1, 5, and 10 years after graduation. And finally, our latest data set, Veterans Employment Outcomes, or VEO. This new experimental data set reports earnings and employment outcomes for U.S. Army enlisted veterans 1, 5, and 10 years after discharge by military occupation, rank, demographics, industry, and geography of employment. In addition to the data tools, raw data downloads are available along with the LEHD microdata for approved projects through our secure census research data centers. Out of the 7 data tools, we will only cover 3 of them. Pseo, as mentioned before, highlights employment and earning outcomes for college and university graduates. By matching university transcript data with a national database of jobs, Pseo provides annual earnings of graduates in the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile and traces graduate movements from post-secondary institution, degree level, and degree major to employment by industry and geographic labor markets. Transcript data is provided to the Census Bureau by higher education systems and individual colleges and universities through data sharing agreements with the Census Bureau. Current partners are listed to the right, and last month we added 6 more states. Texas was the first state that partnered with us in this experimental data set and has since added Texas Higher Education Quorum Board, so we have over 75% of Texas graduates. In this example, Houston Community College markets their welding program as training workers for manufacturer jobs and earnings of up to $50,000 a year. The question is, are they indeed finding manufacturing jobs and earnings that much? According to the Pseo Explorer, after 10 years post-graduation, they earn a little over $50K a year. So let's go live to recreate this example and answer more questions. So here at the census.gov, the best way to find us would be to explore data, very similar to when you look at the Census Business Builder. Go on to Data Tools and Apps. And then you would have to scroll down to the next page. Oh, actually, we can just click here where it says Local Employment Dynamics. So we'll click on that, and then we can just use the sidebar where all the applications are listed. So we're going to look at the Pseo Explorer. We're going to change the state from Colorado to Texas. Then we're going to click on the institution, and I'm just going to type in Houston. And then we can click on Houston Community College. And then instead of associate's degree, we're going to click on certificate less than 1 year. And then change from business management here down on the bottom, and we're going to change it to the mechanic, and I'm going to unclick that. So here we can see, and let me move this. We can see that the total earnings would be $57,733 after 10 years. So the really great thing about that is that if you think about it, you're only going to school for less than a year to get a certificate instead of being bulked down with all of that, the loans, school loans and everything. So the other thing that this application can do is I can change the top where it says data type to flows. And then I can go ahead and change this to geography. And then I'm going to change the display to percentage because percentages are always easier to look at. So when we're looking at this to answer the questions, yes, those receiving that certificate go into manufacturing, at least 14%. 18% is the top with transportation and warehouse. And you can see that 90% of those students stay in Texas. And it's really kind of interesting to look at. So if we look at the years 1 year postgraduate, we see that manufacturing is 13. We can click on 5, which was 14, and then we can look at 10, which comes down to 12%. So they're still in the 12 to 14% area. Okay, back to the PowerPoint. So during the 2021 LED virtual workshop, there was a presenter, his name was Chris Worley. He presented on how the city of Lansing, Michigan utilized loads data to look at spatial shifts in daytime population. So he was kind of looking at the metro area and how that affected all of the businesses in the metro area because there's always workers that are even though you work there, you kind of sort of live there by taking your cleaning goods to somewhere, or you might be shopping or having lunch or whatever the case may be. So we're going to change that, and we're going to look at Houston, Texas using On the Map. So here on the map is a web-based mapping and reporting application that shows where workers work and where they live. It provides companion reports on age, earnings, industry distribution, race, ethnicity, educational attainment, and sex. So first, let's look at the commuting patterns before the pandemic hit. This is a quick visual from 2019 of On the Map's Inflow Outflow. So we can see in the metropolitan area of Houston, Texas, traveling into the area to work is 391,268. Those who live and work in the area are equal to 2,158,596. And those traveling out of the area to work is 283,938. So this is the visual of how this works. So then in this example, we used Houston, Texas again, and we used the home area profile and looked at the industries that had the ability to work remotely. So such as information, finance and insurance, professional and scientific and technical services, and educational services, to name a few. So this example kind of found that in Houston, the metropolitan area, that there was a possibility of 405,589 remote workers. So if you add that to the, the 2 million that actually work and live in Houston and add another 500,000, I think the metro area in the Houston area is doing fine. But let's go ahead and recreate this. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the tab that had the LEHD, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the map, and I'll type in Houston, click on search, and then every geography that comes up that has the word Houston comes up, but we want to scroll down to the metropolitan area. And once that comes up, it's very intuitive. Everything that's highlighted in blue with an underline bold, you would just automatically think, oh, I should click that. But just before I go, just to show you what the square miles are, how many census blocks are in the selected area. So we'll click on the blue Perform Analysis section. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on the Inflow Outflow to show you first how that works. Bummer. Oh, okay. Whew. I was worried for a moment. So anyway, here we are. So this is the inflow outflow, 391,268 workers travel into Houston metropolitan area to work. 2,158,596 work and live in Houston metropolitan area, and 283,938 live in Houston but travel out of there to work. So to just show you quickly how to do the other part of the slides that I showed, I just clicked on change settings, which was down in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to change the home area work to home. And just to give you guys an idea, if you hover over all of the question marks in a bubble, it kind of gives you a little description of what we're looking at. And I kept it on private primary jobs, but if you wanted to look at jobs that included federal civilian workers, you could click on primary jobs, and that would show you the jobs that earn the most income, and it also includes the federal area. So I'm going to go ahead and click on area profile, and then I'll click on go with that lightning bolt, exclamation, bold. And here now we can see on the right-hand side, if I scroll down, and I can see all the different NAICS industry, and we can see that information, finance and insurance, real estate and rental and leasing, professional and scientific and technical services management, and so on. I just kind of added those numbers up to get the 400,000. Okay. Finally, the last data tool that we'll be covering. So in an article written last year before the pandemic hit, an article looked at the rise in construction jobs in recent years and increased hiring from other employers and more hirings of those not currently employed. But the question was, where is all this hiring activity happening? Using the J2J Explorer, it has the ability to track moves within and across metro areas, compare earnings changes for job switchers, ranks results, and express flow volumes as a share of the local labor market. And then J2J Explorer also reveals that in the third quarter of 2017, the construction industry hired the third largest number of workers away from other employers relative to its size. However, hiring is not equal in all parts of the country, so hiring by construction firms was especially strong in the entire state of Nevada and Wyoming, as well as large parts of Arizona, Idaho, Kentucky, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, West Virginia, and Texas. So in addition to hiring workers away from other employers, firms also hire people not currently employed or non-employed. In the figure on the left shows hiring rates in the construction industry in Midland, Texas, both for workers hired from another job, which is the solid line, and those hired from non-employment represented in the dashed line. Workers coming from non-employment represent about 30% to 40% of all hires in a given quarter. According to the article, beginning in the third quarter of 2016, the share of the job-to-job hires increases relative to hires from non-employment, and this shift likely indicates a tightening of the local labor market where firms hire relatively more workers employed at other firms rather than from non-employment. Hiring a worker away from another employer likely requires firms to pay higher earnings than they would if they hired the same worker from non-employment. The figure on the right shows further support of a tight labor market for construction workers in Midland, Texas. The average earnings for new hires in the solid line is generally about the average earnings in the previous shown with the dashed lines. So J2J Explorer can also be used to compare earnings of job stairs. So let's go live to look at this example. Again, I'll go back to the LEHD tab, and then I will click on this J2J Explorer. And that takes you to the homepage of the J2J Explorer. And here, where it says Start Here, I'm going to go ahead and click on California. And then I'm going to just type in Midland, Texas. And it should just come up. So I'll click on that. And then you can see in section 2 how it updates down here on the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and click on how do earnings for hires to jobs in Midland, Texas compare to earnings for job stayers. So I'll click on that. And then just to show you this example, I'm going to go ahead and click on bar charts up at the top. I'm going to change the x-axis to NAICS sector. And then I'm going to change the group to just earnings following persistent non-employment, and then keep the earnings for job stayers. And I think I'll actually keep this also, just so you can see it. So earnings following job-to-job hires. So I'll keep all of that. And I'll change the year from 2020 quarter 2 to 2019 quarter 1. And then so this is really interesting. So you can see that under construction, the job stairs in, well, first of all, the job stairs in mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction industries are the highest, while earnings of job stairs are the lowest in construction industry. And then new hires for non-employment in construction earn relatively high earnings compared with job stairs. So here we can see those we can see these are the earnings following job-to-job hires. And then we can see this one is earnings for job stayers. So if you're staying in the job, you're earning $18,989. But then if you go ahead and get somebody else coming from another construction area or another job, they're earning just a little less than those that are staying. So that's just very interesting to look at. So with that, these web-based analysis and visualization tools provide accessibility to the data for a wide variety of user needs and levels of statistical expertise. These types of applications ease users into sessions of data exploration, and the analysis tools also help to provide real-world context for the data by enabling easy comparisons over time, geography, and characteristics. This contextual perspective often comes about when playing with visualization of the data tool, and visualizations change the way we understand the statistics and lead directly to greater insights, which can lead to more relevant and impactful storytelling. We also use these tools to promote our data partnerships and products to all stakeholders and to expand understanding of our data throughout the federal statistical system. And lastly, we build these data tools for our state partners. We value our voluntary partners and hope that these tools significantly improve access to LED data and help to streamline data processes in their states. So with that, I hand it back over to Andy, and thank you so much for your time and listening to what I had to say about LEHD.
Great. Thank you so much, Arlene. I always learn something new every single time you present. I hadn't seen this same presentation before, and so I really loved it. So thank you all so much for giving Arlene and I a chance to chat with you all. As you can see, she is sharing our contacts information. However, I will say that I am actually retiring on December 17th of this year. So if you want to be able to reach out to our outreach office, if you have any questions after I'm retired, please go ahead and contact us at the email address that I've included in the chat. Arlene is not retiring, so you'll get to keep continuing to talk to her about her wonderful LEHD programs. So why don't we see if we have any questions? Feel free to either put them in the chat or unmute yourself, and we can take them over the audio line. So does anybody have any questions about anything that I showed you all, or the data that the tools that Arlene showed you?
Does anybody have questions? You can unmute yourself. I will unmute everybody, or I think I can, but feel free to ask or step in. Thank you, Sai.
Well, yeah, thank you, Sai, for that. I love the word serene years. I'm not quite sure I'd use the term serene for what I have planned for the next year or so. I was talking with Monica before we got started. I plan to travel quite a bit, including seeing some of the wonderful places in your state. So thank you for your wishes. So.
One last call for either final questions. You can
I do have
yourself.
a question.
Yes, great.
So hi, Andy. Hi, Arlene. Thank you for the presentation. Always a pleasure to have you. So Andy, you mentioned the zip code business patterns survey, and just to confirm, so this is an annual survey and it covers all the NAICS codes, or
Yes, it does. So Zip Code Business Patterns is actually affiliated with our County Business Patterns program. So if you go to census.gov and you type in the search box at the very top, County Business Patterns, or CBP, that'll bring you to the County Business Patterns website, and on there is where the links to the Zip Code Business Patterns data are. Now, because ZBP is associated with the county business patterns, the only businesses that are covered by ZBP are employer businesses, just like county business patterns. So these are businesses with one or more paid employees. Non-employers, the self-employed people, are covered by our non-employer statistics program, and that program currently does not produce data down to the zip code level, although I will tell you that after many, many years of whining and moaning and complaining, my colleagues have talked about expanding the non-employer data to start to show zip code level information. But yes, the zip code data are shown. A last point that I'll make about zip code business patterns is, and I did see a note from one of the attendees, Edward, about looking at zip code level data in Census Business Builder. You can view zip code level demographic data. So all of that data from the American Community Survey on population and household income and educational attainment and house values and all the other demographic data that's in CBB from the American Community Survey by zip code are accessible in Census Business Builder. But about 9 months ago, we actually ran into a problem with the ZBP, the Zip Code Business Patterns data in Census Business Builder. And unfortunately, we are still, even after 9 months now, still trying to figure out how to get that zip code business data back into Census Business Builder. So right now, the only places that you can access the zip code business patterns data are in data.census.gov and in our API. You can download the data from their website as well, but I will warn you, the zip code files, as you can probably imagine, are gigantic. So if you try to download the entire ZBP data set on an annual basis, you're going to be sitting there for a while. So the API is where I send most people to for zip code data. So yeah, great question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and enjoy your retirement, okay?
Thank you.
Andy, the other question, or the other part of that Edward has asked, what's supermarkets and grocery stores are combined into one category. Can I obtain separate counts for just supermarkets?
So the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is it'll depend upon what you define as a supermarket versus a grocery store. The data for supermarkets and grocery stores is a single 6-digit NAICS code. And no, there is not a 7-digit NAICS code that then breaks out supermarkets and grocery stores into their separate categories. But if you look at the NAPS data at that product breakout, and you look at the product information that is shown, we do publish data on the number of establishments or companies that are selling that particular product. And you could then get close to separating out the supermarkets from the grocery stores by looking at the NAPS data. It's not a perfect proxy, but it's close.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we have one other question here from Cy. Arlene, can I contact you about a question on agricultural data, the difficulty in finding workers in the industry? I guess that will be a follow-up question for you, Arlene. So I'm assuming you'd say yes.
Actually, I
Okay.
actually sent Cy a message, and Andy might be able to explain it better than me, because the agriculture data actually went to the Department of Agriculture. So Andy, can you talk more on that?
Yeah, so very few of our Census Bureau business surveys produce statistics or include data on NAICS 11, the agriculture sector, because USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, through their National Agricultural Statistics Service, would be the best source of data on farms. Now, there are a couple of exceptions. Within NAICS 11, you have 111 and 112, which are crop production and animal production. Those two clearly are not covered by the Census Bureau. The ag support services are partially covered by us. So you are going to get some data for 113, 114, 115, and 116, the ag support NAICS codes, subsectors. But the main part of agriculture, the lion's share of farming businesses, the animal production and the crop production sides are not covered by Census at all. You have to go to USDA. I don't think, and Arlene, I may flip this back to you, but I don't think USDA NAS has a tool like you've got in LEHD that looks at agricultural workers quite the way that you do in QWI and Pseo and VEO Explorer. I don't think they have it. They have different breakouts of agricultural workers, but I don't think they have a tool quite like what you've got in the LEHD tools. Does that sound about right, Arlene?
We can definitely look at that together, Cy, if you'd like. So just send me an email and we can work through that.
Great. Last call for any questions from anyone. So I want to thank Arlene and Andy for for joining us this morning on this Monday morning, and just great workshop, amazing tools all the time. I do want to ask my colleague Janine to put in the chat a link to our website for the Texas Demographic Center, as well as a link to all the data products that we've produced, a lot of interactive tools and other things from our for our 2020 census data tools. But I do just want to say thank you so much. We hope to see you in your trailer camper like down the highway here, Andy, in Texas. So just come in the fall though, okay?
Thank you.
But I also want to thank Barbara LaFleur, who's on the call. She's our liaison to all the state data centers. Thank you, Barbara, for helping coordinate this and for bringing and inviting and helping collaborate on this great webinar with Andy and Arlene. Again, my name is Monica Cruz. Yes?
I was just going to say, and as usual, Monica, thank you for hosting it. It's always a pleasure to work with you guys and get this information out to the public and to your network. So thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. And without further ado, I just want to, this is, can you all see? This is our website. Look us up, our phone number if you want to reach out to us at any point. We're just super excited to have everyone here, and we wish everybody a great Thanksgiving holiday. You all folks can just pretty much, if you'd like, go ahead and log off. I'm going to stop recording here. And then for anybody who would like to just stay on the call a little bit longer, I'll let, of course, Andy and Arlene and our guests go ahead and get on to, I'm sure, your next presentation. But Janine and I and a few of my colleagues might stay on the call here if anybody wants to just kind of stay in and ask us any questions about the services and products that we provide and any support we can, and provide you with any research or other data tools. So thank you all so much.
Thank
And
you.
again, we'll be staying on.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.